What kind of man invites a woman across half a continent, then throws her away like winter dust the moment she arrives? The question pierces the cold New Year air long before Clara Whitman ever dares to think it. Long before the shocked whispers at the Silver Creek station settle into the boards beneath her boots. She stands there with a single carpet bag, and the last of her hope stitched into its fraying seams, the snow-laced wind cutting through her thin coat as if determined to see how much more she can endure. The train exhales steam behind her. People turn. They look. They judge. The man who was supposed to meet her, tall, stiff-jawed, a stranger who had once written words of promise on paper, shakes his head in disgust and mutters loud enough for the whole platform to hear that she is not what he wanted, not what he ordered, not his problem anymore. He leaves, just like that, as if she were a parcel delivered in error. Clara doesn't cry. She has no tears left. Fire already burned them away, along with the farmhouse, the fences, and every person she loved. Only the name of the man responsible, Marcus Hale, still burns like a brand inside her chest. He did it to punish her father for telling the truth, and he is still out there somewhere, a shadow moving through the west. She came here to escape that shadow, to survive, to start over as a mail-order bride because there was nothing else left for her to be. But now even that thin road forward has vanished, and the station begins to empty, leaving her alone in the brittle New Year wind. The cold is not just weather. It is a verdict. She imagines lying down in the snow and letting it cover her until there is nothing left but silence. No one would know. No one would care. But then she hears a small voice. "Are you sad?" It is the gentlest intrusion she has ever known. Clara blinks and looks down. A little girl stands near her boots, a fragile thing wrapped in a wool coat too big for her, with brown curls, serious eyes, and a cautious sort of kindness. She might be 6, maybe 7, the kind of child who already understands loss. Clara tries to speak, but her voice fractures like ice. "I suppose I am." The girl nods slowly, as if sadness is a language she already speaks fluently. "I get sad sometimes too. My mama went to heaven." Clara's heart lurches. Grief recognizes its twin instantly. The girl shifts closer, as if she sees something in Clara that makes her feel safer rather than afraid. "My name is Lily. What's yours?" "Clara," she whispers. Saying her name feels strange, as though it belongs to someone she buried. Lily studies her face. "You look like you need a story." The remark is so unexpectedly sincere that Clara almost smiles. Once she loved books. Stories had been lanterns, lighting quiet winter nights on the farm. She nods without meaning to, and Lily brightens, pulling a worn little book from her pocket as if destiny itself packed it there. "This one's about a princess who saves a dragon," Lily says. "He got hurt and forgot how to breathe fire." Fire. The word scrapes like gravel against Clara's memory, yet something inside her softens. Lily sits on a bench and pats the space beside her. Clara lowers herself slowly, opening the pages with hands that tremble more from emotion than cold. Her voice steadies as she reads. A princess, a wounded dragon, courage in the dark. And somehow, in reading it aloud, Clara hears something she didn't know she still possessed. The faint echo of warmth. Footsteps approach. A shadow falls over them. Lily looks up and smiles. "Papa!" The man who stands there is weathered by work and war. Tall but leaning slightly on a cane, his coat dusted with snow. His name is Daniel Carter, though Clara does not know it yet. What she does see is the way his eyes sharpen with instinct the moment he spots a stranger near his child, the way he positions himself protectively, the way the world narrows into a silent standoff. Clara straightens, her heart skipping in fear. She expects accusation, rejection, another dismissal. Instead, Lily simply says, "Papa, this is Clara. She was sad, so I shared the story." Daniel studies Clara, noticing the luggage, the wind-bitten cheeks, the haunted distance in her gaze. A soldier knows pain when he sees it. He also knows danger. "You new in town?" he asks, voice quiet but firm. Clara nods. "I was meant to be, but the man who sent for me changed his mind." Shame flushes her face. The truth feels like a public sentence. Daniel exhales slowly, the breath leaving him like an old ache. He glances at Lily, then back at Clara. There is no softness yet, only a measured patience. "You got somewhere to stay?" "No." The word is so small it nearly disappears in the wind. A beat passes, then another. The silence stretches, but it is not cruel. It is thoughtful. Daniel kneels to meet Lily's eyes. "Thank you for being kind," he murmurs. "Your mama would be proud." Lily beams, and the grief behind his gaze becomes visible for just an instant. That is when Clara understands. They are broken too. When Daniel stands, his expression has changed. Still cautious, still guarded, but different. "I've got a ranch outside town," he says. "I need help with the house, someone to look after Lily when I'm working. It's honest work, board and meals, $5 a month." He pauses. "If you want it." Clara stares at him. It is not romance, not rescue. It is survival with dignity. And right now, that is more than she ever thought she'd receive again. "I would be grateful," she says softly. They shake hands. No promises beyond necessity. No illusions. Only a small, fragile thread tying her back to life. As the snow drifts lazily from the New Year's sky, Clara follows Daniel and Lily away from the platform, away from the public humiliation, and toward a ranch she has never seen. She does not know that danger is already tracking her. She does not know that love will grow in unexpected places. She only knows that for the first time since the fire, she is not entirely alone. And that is enough to keep walking. The Carter Ranch sits alone against the winter horizon, a cluster of sturdy buildings wrapped in frost and silence. Clara rides beside Daniel in the wagon, Lily pressed sleepily against her shoulder, and she tries to quiet the restless beat of her heart. The road cuts through rolling fields gone pale beneath the New Year's snow, and each turn feels like a step away from the woman she used to be, and a step into something new that she doesn't dare define. The house is plain but strong, its timbers weathered and honest. A barn hunkers nearby, half buried in drifts, and thin smoke curls from the chimney. Inside, the air smells of coffee, firewood, and a life lived with simple purpose. Daniel sets Clara's bag down in a small spare room, a bed neatly made, a dresser, a single window facing the sunrise. "This'll be yours," he says, as if apologizing for the austerity. Clara runs her hand over the quilt, grateful for its warmth. It's more than enough. The rules establish themselves easily. She cooks. She keeps the house. She reads with Lily in the evenings. When Daniel is out working the herd or repairing fences, she becomes the steady rhythm inside these walls, sweeping, stirring soup, stitching worn fabric. The quiet tasks soothe her. They give her something to hold when memory tries to drag her under. Lily thrives under the soft glow of attention. She trails Clara like sunlight through the rooms, chattering about the princess and the dragon, about school lessons, about her papa who used to laugh more when Mama was alive. Clara listens, careful, gentle, aware that this child is offering her trust piece by fragile piece. Daniel watches all of it with cautious gratitude. He doesn't intrude. He doesn't prod. But he notices how Lily's laughter returns like something that had been locked away. He notices how Clara remains modestly distant, always polite, never demanding, always keeping some part of herself walled off. At night, Clara sits by the kitchen window, staring at the quiet yard while the lantern flickers. The silence is both comfort and burden. She thinks of Marcus Hale, of the crackle of flames, of the terrified cry that was the last sound she ever heard from her father. She promised herself she would disappear, keep moving, never linger long enough for Hale to find her. Yet she is still here, And she is beginning to care. That is the most dangerous thing of all. Daniel senses the shadows even if he doesn't know their name. Sometimes he finds Clara lost in thought, her gaze distant, her breath shallow. He doesn't ask. He simply pours another cup of coffee, sets it beside her, and lets her decide whether the words will ever come. He has his own darkness, years of war, the limp that reminds him of pain etched into bone, a wife buried too soon. He understands the language of grief, and he respects it. One late afternoon, Lily climbs the loft ladder in the barn while Clara sweeps below. The ranch hands are away, and Daniel is in town on business with the sheriff. Lily hums to herself, fearless, unaware of how fragile life can be. Clara looks up just as Lily's foot slips on the rung. Time shatters. The world narrows to one scream and a blur of motion. Lily tumbles, straw erupts. Clara drops the broom and runs, her heart pounding so loudly she can't hear anything else. She kneels beside the small body, hands trembling as she presses them gently against Lily's head, whispering soothing words she doesn't even register forming on her lips. Lily whimpers but breathes. There is blood. Clara swallows her panic and works with sharp, practiced care, tearing cloth, wrapping the wound, refusing to let the terror consume her. By the time Daniel returns with the doctor, she is still there, anchored, a quiet pillar against the storm breaking inside her. The doctor praises her calm. Daniel looks at Clara with a raw gratitude that says more than words ever could. Later, when Lily sleeps peacefully in her bed, Daniel stays at the kitchen table long after the lantern should have been extinguished. Clara sits across from him, fingers wrapped around a cooling cup of tea. "Thank you," he says finally. His voice has lost its usual reserve. It is simply a man speaking truth. "You saved my little girl." Clara feels the weight of that, not as praise, but as tether. She nods. "She means the world to you." He hesitates. "She does, and she's taking to you. I need you to know that." There is a warning beneath the gratitude. Not a threat, just a plea for care with fragile hearts. Clara understands. She feels it too. Something living, breathing, growing where only ashes had been. And she fears it. Days pass. Winter loosens its grip, but the nights still bite, and the shadows remain. Clara begins to notice signs on the wind. A rider asking questions in town. A stranger glimpsed on the ridge. The way Daniel keeps his rifle a little closer at hand. She feels the past circling like a wolf, though she says nothing. She tries to be thankful for each day unbroken, each laugh from Lily, each quiet nod from Daniel across the dinner table. Because she knows peace is fragile. Because she knows men like Marcus Hale do not simply disappear. At church on Sunday, whispers follow Clara down the aisle. Mail-order bride rejected. Now working at the Carter Ranch. Some women pity her. Others judge her. But when Lily slips her hand into Clara's and refuses to let go, the murmurs fade into something unimportant. Daniel sits beside them, posture straight, chin lifted, making it clear that this woman is under his protection. Not ownership, not claim, protection. Afterward, while Lily chases a stray dog through the yard, Daniel speaks quietly. "You're safe here," he says. Clara wishes she could believe that. The truth presses at her lips like heat. She almost tells him everything. How the fire wasn't an accident. How Marcus Hale vowed she would pay for her father's testimony. How she fears she has led danger straight to his door. But fear wins. Not for herself. For Lily. For the fragile softening in Daniel's eyes. So she swallows the confession, along with the longing that has begun to take root in her chest. Night settles again across the prairie, and Clara stands at the doorway, listening to the wind cry through the fences. She knows storms often look like calm before they break. She also knows that whatever comes, she will not run this time, not if it means abandoning the only home she has left. In that quiet, frightening decision, something changes. A woman who once fled fire now vows to stand her ground. And far beyond the ranch, a man named Marcus Hale hears rumors of a young woman with sorrow in her eyes, hiding in a place called Silver Creek. He smiles and begins to ride. The wind changes first. It slides across the prairie like a whisper carrying someone else's breath, unsettled and watchful. Clara feels it in the quiet moments, in the way Daniel's gaze lingers toward the road, in the way Lily clings just a little tighter before bed, in the way every creak of the house at night makes Clara's heartbeat quicken, as if danger itself has learned the rhythm of their home. She tries to ignore it. She keeps cooking, keeps reading stories, keeps pretending the shadows outside the window are nothing more than trees bending in the winter air. But the truth has a way of circling back, patient and relentless. One afternoon, Daniel returns from town later than usual. He hangs his hat by the door, movement stiff, face unreadable. Lily runs to hug him, and he smiles for her sake, but the smile doesn't reach his eyes. Clara notices. She always notices. When Lily goes to wash up for supper, Daniel speaks quietly, like a man measuring every word. "There's been a stranger asking questions," he says. "Tall, hard eyes, said he was passing through." Her breath falters. The room tightens around her. "What kind of questions?" "About you." The final thread of denial snaps. She closes her eyes for a moment, steadying herself, hearing the crackle of flames that no longer exist, and feeling the weight of smoke that still lives in her lungs. "Daniel," she whispers, "I need to tell you something." He nods, pulling out a chair, giving her space to sit, to breathe, to unravel the secret she has stitched inside her for so long. Her voice trembles, but does not break. She tells him about Marcus Hale, about the trial, the testimony, the fire, how she ran because fear was the only thing she had left. Daniel doesn't interrupt. He listens, face worn by understanding and something fiercer, anger, not at her, but at the injustice that stalks her like a hound. When she finishes, the silence feels heavy enough to crush. "You think this man is here for you?" he says. Clara nods. He won't stop. Daniel exhales slowly, leaning back as if bracing against an invisible blow. "Then he's already made a mistake," he murmurs. "He came to the wrong ranch." She wants to believe him. She wants to let his certainty wrap around her like a blanket. But fear is stubborn, and she has learned the hard way that courage doesn't erase danger. It just chooses to face it. That night, Daniel loads his rifle on the kitchen table with quiet, deliberate motions. Clara watches from the doorway, heart pounding in time with every metallic click. He meets her gaze. I've seen men like him. Their power is fear. You stop feeding it, they shrink. And if they don't, then I stand between him and my family. The word lands heavily between them. Family. Neither of them corrects it. The days that follow build tension like storm clouds pressing against the horizon. Daniel rides into town to speak with Sheriff Collins, who tightens patrols and asks questions of his own. A few ranch hands mention seeing a lone rider on the ridge. Lily senses the change even if no one explains it. She keeps close to Clara, her small hand seeking reassurance without words. One afternoon, as Clara and Lily return from feeding the chickens, a silhouette appears near the corral. A man sits his horse with the loose arrogance of someone who has never been told no. His coat is dark, his smile darker. Even at a distance, Clara recognizes the posture, the tilt of the head, the cruel ease of his stillness. Marcus Hale. The world narrows into a cold tunnel. Daniel steps outside, placing himself between Clara and the stranger, his voice steady. "You're on private land." Hale tips his hat in mock politeness. "Just paying respects. Heard an old acquaintance of mine might be here. Girl from back east, pretty thing with a stubborn streak." Clara doesn't move. She barely breathes. Daniel's hand hovers near his sidearm. "She's under my protection." Hale laughs softly. "See, that's the problem. The law doesn't scare me, and neither do men with good intentions." Sheriff Collins arrives minutes later, called by a ranch hand who rode hard after spotting the rider. He stands beside Daniel with the calm authority of someone who's seen too much to flinch. "You're trespassing. You leave now." Hale's eyes settle briefly on Clara. There is recognition, satisfaction, a promise. Then he turns his horse with a lazy flick of the reins. "I'll be around," he says. Fire always finds its way home. When he disappears over the hill, Clara feels her knees weaken. Daniel guides her inside before the fear can spill out in front of Lily. Only when the door closes does Clara finally shake. "He won't stop," she whispers. Daniel grips her shoulders gently. "Then we don't run. Not this time." That night, sleep becomes a stranger. Clara lies awake listening to every sound, every wind gust, every restless groan of timber. She thinks of Lily's laughter, of Daniel's quiet strength, of the fragile sanctuary she has grown to love. And beneath the fear burns something unexpected: anger. Marcus took enough. He does not get this too. In the morning, Clara helps Lily with lessons as if the world hasn't shifted beneath their feet. Routine becomes armor. Daniel strengthens the gates, checks the horses, speaks again with the sheriff. The community begins to circle around them, discreet but firm. People may gossip, but they also protect their own. One evening, as the sun bleeds out across the frozen horizon, Daniel stands beside Clara on the porch. The silence between them is full, weighted with everything they haven't said. "I don't want you to be afraid in your own home," he says quietly. Clara meets his gaze. "I've been afraid for so long I forgot what it was like not to be." He pauses. "But you're not alone anymore." The truth of that statement wraps softly around her heart. It doesn't erase the danger. It doesn't promise a happy ending. But it gives her something worth fighting for. And as the winter wind rises again, carrying with it the lingering echo of threats yet to be fulfilled, Clara Whitman stands her ground, not as a fugitive, not as a victim, but as a woman who has finally found something too precious to surrender. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the ranch lights, Marcus Hale watches, waits, and plans. The game is no longer about revenge. It is about possession, and he has no intention of leaving Silver Creek until he feels the fire burn again. The fire begins with a whisper, the kind that slithers through the night before anyone smells the smoke. The Carter Ranch sleeps beneath a winter moon, quiet and unsuspecting, while Clara lies awake listening to the soft rhythm of Lily's breathing in the next room. She cannot rest. Fear sits at the foot of her bed like a living thing. Somewhere out there, Marcus Hale waits. Somewhere, danger sharpens its teeth. Then the wind shifts. Clara smells it. Burning hay, crackling timber, the bitter sting of a memory that never truly left. Her heart jerks hard inside her chest. She bolts upright. "Daniel!" Her voice fractures the silence. He is already moving, pulling on boots, grabbing his rifle as the glow of orange blooms beyond the window. Flames climb the barn like greedy hands reaching toward the sky. Sparks scatter, the horses scream. Lily wakes crying, confused by the chaos. Clara pulls her close for a second, pressing a trembling kiss to the child's hair. "Stay inside, stay low, don't move unless Daniel comes for you." Their eyes meet, small, frightened, trusting, and Clara feels a steel resolve lock into place. She will not let the fire win again. She runs into the yard, cold air slamming into her lungs. Heat pushes back from the barn in great rolling waves. Daniel is already there, shouting to the ranch hands, untying frantic horses, batting sparks from his coat. And beyond the blaze, standing calmly in the shadows, as if the world is merely performing for him, waits Marcus Hale. His smile glows almost as bright as the fire. "Evening," he calls, voice smooth and poisonous. "Thought I'd stop by, warm the place up for you." Daniel raises his rifle, eyes hard, jaw tight. "You set this." "Course I did." Hale's gaze slides past him to Clara, her hair lit in gold by the firelight, fear painted across her face but not controlling it this time. A little bird here has a habit of flying where she doesn't belong. The sheriff's voice arrives like a lifeline. Marcus Hale! Sheriff Collins rides in with 2 deputies, horses pounding across the frozen ground. Put your hands where I can see them. Hale laughs. You boys are late. The show started without you. The crack of gunfire splits the night. Daniel drags Clara behind a water trough as splinters explode from the wood. Deputies return fire. The barn roars. Roof timbers collapsing in showers of sparks. Horsetails flash white with terror. Lily screams from inside the house, and the sound tears through Clara like a blade. She cannot hide. She cannot watch this unfold from safety. Not again. Not when these people, this child, this man, have become the fragile world she now calls home. She crouches low, keeps her breath steady the way her father once taught her, and edges toward the porch to reach Lily. Daniel spots her and curses under his breath. Clara, stay down! She needs me. It is not defiance. It is truth. He knows it and doesn't argue again. He shifts his position, drawing Hale's line of sight away from the house. The deputies keep firing. Controlled, disciplined shots meant to pin Hale without killing him unless there is no other choice. Hale moves like someone who enjoys the dance. He fires back and shouts over the roar of flames. You think the law scares me? You think some crippled rancher can stop what's already been written? Daniel's hands tighten on the rifle, pain flashing through his leg, but his voice remains steady. She's not yours to haunt anymore. She's mine until I say otherwise. Hale reloads with calm cruelty. That fire I lit back east, that was mercy. The next one I finish. Clara reaches Lily and pulls her into her arms, shielding her from the smoke, whispering promises she intends to keep no matter the cost. Then the barn roof collapses entirely, a thunderous crash that shakes the ground and throws sparks high into the sky like shattered stars. One flaming beam rolls toward the house, sending heat searing across Clara's face. She grabs a blanket, beats the sparks down with desperate force, refusing to let the fire take root again. Sheriff Collins uses the chaos to advance, voice cutting through the noise. Marcus Hale, you're under arrest for arson, attempted murder, and obstruction of justice. Drop the weapon now. Hale doesn't. Instead, he turns his gun toward the porch, toward Clara. The world narrows to a single, merciless instant. Daniel fires first. The shot rings out sharp and final. Hale stumbles, rage twisting into shock as the bullet tears through his shoulder, spinning him backward. His gun clatters into the dirt. Deputies rush in, wrestle him down, cuffing his wrists while he hurls curses thick with venom. Clara sags with relief, holding Lily tighter. Daniel limps toward them, breath harsh, eyes never leaving Hale until the man is fully restrained. Sheriff Collins kneels beside the injured criminal. Looks like the end of the trail for you? You think this stops anything? Hale snarls. You think prison scares me? Save it, the sheriff replies. You've already said enough. And Hale has. Enough to reopen every file. Enough to revisit every unanswered question about the fire that stole Clara's family. Enough to bring justice lumbering at last to the place where it always should have stood. The barn hisses and crackles, eventually collapsing into blackened ruin. Men form a bucket line. Embers die reluctantly. The night slowly exhales. Only then does Daniel finally reach Clara and Lily. He rests his hand, steady now, on Clara's shoulder. You all right? She nods, though tears streak her soot-darkened cheeks. We're safe. Lily buries her face in Clara's coat. I was scared. So was I, Clara whispers. But beneath the fear lies something solid. Resolve, belonging. The stubborn flame of a heart that refuses to be consumed again. Sheriff Collins approaches, his expression solemn yet relieved. Hale's already talking. Admitted plenty. We'll reopen the case back east. Your father's name will be cleared, Clara. She swallows hard, pain and gratitude colliding. Thank you. He tips his hat. You deserve peace. Maybe now you'll get some. As dawn pushes pale light over the charred remains of the barn, Clara realizes something unexpected. The fire did not claim her this time. It tested her, and she did not run. Daniel stands beside her, shoulders squared despite the ache in his leg, eyes fixed on the horizon as if measuring all that still lies ahead. Lily slips her small hand into each of theirs, linking them. For the first time, the ranch doesn't feel like borrowed shelter. It feels like a place chosen, a place worth fighting for. In the distance, a prison wagon is being readied. Marcus Hale watches them with hatred, but hatred can no longer reach as far as it once did. The law will carry him away. The truth will finally speak. And Clara Whitman, who once had nothing left but the echo of flames, begins at last to imagine a life where love might grow in the ashes. Morning arrives softly, as if the sky itself is reluctant to disturb the fragile peace settling over the Carter Ranch. Frost still clings to the blackened earth where the barn once stood, but the fire no longer rules the story. Men from town work quietly to clear the remains, speaking in low voices out of respect for all that nearly burned. Clara watches from the porch, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, Lily tucked against her side. The child has barely let go of her since the night of the fire, and Clara has not once thought of pulling away. Daniel steps outside, favoring his injured leg but trying not to show it. He stops beside them, his presence steady and familiar now, like the shape of the land. For a while, they simply stand there together. Words would be too loud. Eventually, Daniel clears his throat. "Sheriff Collins wired the authorities back east," he says gently. "Hale confessed enough to set things right. Your father's name will be cleared. Your family will get the justice they deserved." Clara closes her eyes. The relief doesn't crash over her. It settles slowly, carefully, as if testing whether it is safe to stay. "Thank you," she whispers, because there is nothing else big enough to hold what she feels. That night, the sheriff escorts Hale out under guard, bound for trial and a cell far from Silver Creek. Hale spits threats and curses, but his words fall powerless against the quiet strength of the people who stand watching. Clara doesn't follow them to the road. She doesn't need to. She already knows the past has finally loosened its grasp. After the wagon disappears, Daniel finds Clara in the dim glow of the parlor lamp. Lily sleeps upstairs, exhausted from fear and tears and the shock of nearly losing everything again. Clara sits straight-backed in a wooden chair, hands folded in her lap, staring into the flickering light as if searching for her place in it. Daniel doesn't rush. He lowers himself into the chair opposite her, wincing at the slow ache in his leg, and studies her face. "You don't owe us anything," he says quietly. "If you want to leave, now that it's safe, I'll help you any way I can." The words are kind, too kind. They tear at something deep inside her. "I don't want to leave," she admits, barely above a whisper. "But I'm afraid of staying too." He nods, understanding without judgment. "Fear doesn't mean you're wrong," he says. "It just means what you're choosing matters." Silence stretches between them, not empty but full of fragile truth. Clara thinks of the train platform on New Year's Day, of humiliation and cold wind and the terrible weight of believing she was unworthy of being chosen. She thinks of Lily's tiny hand in hers, of Daniel's steady voice in the fire, of laughter slowly returning to a house that once held only grief. She finally meets his eyes. "I don't know how to build a life that won't fall apart." Daniel's voice is low, roughened by honesty. "Neither do I. I only know that everything worth keeping is fragile, and that I don't want to face another day without you here." The words settle across the room with the certainty of a promise. He doesn't kneel. He doesn't recite prepared phrases. He simply looks at her with the kind of love that grows in quiet places, earned, not offered lightly. "Clara Whitman," he says, "I'm asking you to be my wife. Not because I need a housekeeper, not because Lily needs a mother, though she surely does, but because when you came into this house, it didn't feel hollow anymore, and I don't ever want to go back to the man I was before that." Clara's heart aches at the tenderness of it. Not dramatic, not grand, simply true. She thinks of all she has lost, all she might yet lose. And for the first time, the fear doesn't cage her. It guides her toward what matters. Yes, she breathes. I will. His shoulders relax, as though he has been holding his breath since the day she first stepped off that train. He reaches across the table and takes her hand, rough palm warm against her skin. For Clara, it feels like stepping into sunlight after years of winter. The wedding is small. The townspeople gather in quiet celebration, as if recognizing that some stories do not need spectacle. They need sincerity. Lily stands between them with a proud smile, her small fingers curled firmly around Clara's. Sheriff Collins signs the adoption papers soon after, placing them in Daniel's hands with a nod. She's yours, he says. All of you belong to each other now. Clara presses a kiss to Lily's hair and feels the truth of it pulse through her like a second heartbeat. The New Year's sun rises over the prairie, and the ranch slowly rebuilds. Neighbors help raise a new barn. Friends bring food, tools, and hands willing to work. Daniel shoulders the labor with silent gratitude, Clara steady at his side. They do not pretend life will always be easy, but for the first time, they face the future without running. At night, when the house finally quiets, Clara sometimes lies awake, remembering the girl who arrived with nothing but grief and a single, worn bag. She hardly recognizes that woman now. This life isn't perfect. It isn't safe from sorrow, but it is chosen. And love, she has learned, is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to build anyway. On the first anniversary of her arrival in Silver Creek, Clara steps onto the porch with Lily's hand in hers, Daniel standing behind them with a gentle arm around her waist. Snowflakes drift softly through the air, and the land glows with the promise of another year. Clara smiles, not because everything is healed, but because she finally understands that healing is not a single moment. It is a life lived forward, day by day, with people who refuse to let you fall alone. And as the new year dawns once more, the Carter Ranch is no longer just a refuge for a frightened woman. It is a home, stitched together not by fate, but by courage, forgiveness, and a love strong enough to survive the fire. Slowly now, as if the story itself wants to rest, we ease into the final words. Clara Whitman arrived in Silver Creek with nothing but ashes in her heart and a suitcase nearly as empty as her hope. She expected rejection, hardship, and cold roads that never ended. Instead, she found a child who taught her to love again, a man who stood between her and the darkness, and a home that did not erase her past, but helped her carry it more gently. Justice finally spoke for those she lost, and the shadows that once chased her began to fade into the distance. Life did not become perfect. It simply became possible. And in that quiet possibility, Clara chose love. She chose to stay. She chose to begin again beneath the pale New Year sky, where fire no longer meant destruction, but warmth. Tonight, we leave her there, safe in the home she helped rebuild, with Daniel's hand in hers and Lily's laughter drifting through the doorway like music. The future stretches softly ahead of them, and for once, it is kind. End of article. Good night.